Good morning and welcome to, I think it's our ninth actually edition of Talking to Artists, which has been really great. I'm doing it from my cottage again this week, which is also it's supposed to be my painting studio, although I have to say I've had an incredibly hard time, I don't know why, getting my shit together and actually painting. I'm usually super productive up at the cottage because it's it's a place that for me has a huge amount of inspiration, and that's been really important for me. But I think between the being really, really hot and then it was raining, I don't know, not been as productive as I would have liked, but that's fine. So really excited today to talk to an artist that I have admired for a long time, Gordon Leverton. He goes by Hamilton Artist, and he does really beautifully graphic contemporary landscapes of kind of our modern homes and kind of our houses, but in a really appealing way that's kind of like with mixing of colors and stuff. So he is also one of these artists who has got his fingers in a whole bunch of different things, very involved in the Hamilton arts community. So really excited to talk to Gordon. So I'm going to bring him on right now, and let me just, where are you? There you go. Gordon to join us and learn all about what he's up to these days. So I'm actually working on, oh, there he comes. Hey!
Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah. Oh, it looks like you're in your backyard as well.
I am.
Cool.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
There is a bit of construction in our neighborhood, so if you hear some beeping and stuff, just prepare for that.
Well, and we have really loud birds here this morning. I was just like, holy cow, I don't know what that is. And I've been trying to do a little bit of amateur bird watching to try and figure them out, but it's just loud. So hopefully it won't interfere.
We're not lucky. We just have a cicada that likes to spring up once in a while.
Yeah, those two. I remember years ago we had this big hoot owl. And so at first you're like, wow, that's just so cool. And we went out, we looked at it. And then by about 3 a.m, I'm like, Jesus, just shoot that thing. It was so loud. Obviously I didn't, because I love animals, I love birds. But
But not at 3 a.m.
yeah, exactly. And they're really loud.
Of course, if you're from Toronto, you're a fan of the raccoons that get into the garbage at night, right?
Yeah. And the fights that they come with those too.
Yeah, they sound like
So,
fighting.
oh, I know. There's been times when I've woken up and then sometimes you get the cat and the raccoon fight. Just not a good thing. So so it's you and your wife is doing your videotaping for you?
Yeah, she is. My wife Nancy, she's my PR, my social media, my she's the driver of the engine. I just do all the painting.
That sounds like a perfect marriage. Well, hi Nancy, welcome to our podcast as well. So I can see you've got a piece behind you. So why don't we talk about what are you working on now and what's kind of got you charged? I see you're working on a new collection, I think.
Yeah, I'm just finishing up. Is it 4 or maybe 5 commissions in a row? They just all kind of fell in my lap, and of course, they all came with deadlines. So that was exciting and a bit frightening. So sometimes I like that challenge, though. So it kind of pushes you, and it's like having the in-laws over for dinner. You clean your house and make sure everything's perfect. I work better with a deadline sometimes. So
I always do. And I think for me, this COVID with all the shows being canceled has been a huge challenge for me to actually get going. And although I also have a lot of commissions, which is great, they don't really have deadlines because everyone's being really understanding, and it's almost like I need I need them to have a deadline.
yeah, true. It was weird at the beginning of COVID because I was just so distracted by the news that I couldn't really focus that well. I'm a lot better now. Now that kind of the news cycle, I can sort of ignore it. But yeah, the first month for sure was a really strange thing, and then all the shows were up in the air, and then they were canceling, and yeah, it was a weird time. But now I feel like
Yeah.
now that I don't have those physical shows to do, I'm spending a lot more time in the studio.
It's funny because I sort of thought I would. So I was I agree that it was a very strange time, and I didn't produce a lot at the beginning with COVID, but because I was involved in the Artist Network, there was, in our Riverdale Art Walk was the first show to be canceled. There was a huge amount of trying to figure out what to do and how to move things online, how to help artists move online, all that sort of stuff. So that kind of was nice in hindsight, just because it kept me busy and didn't allow me the luxury of kind of watching the news too often because it was just crazy. I mean, surreal, you know.
It really was.
So,
I was
and
well, I'm involved with the West Hamilton Artist Tour, which is on Mother's Day weekend. So I think this year is the 10th and 11th of May, and
yeah.
so it's the first show that I do every year, and that was right around the time where it's like, uh, well, when the yeah, there's a lot of preparation in these shows. Like you're getting advertising, you're setting your budgets, you're getting your artists, picking the artists, and curating that. And
Hmm.
these things all take weeks and months to do. So we were kind of at a point where it's like, well, we have to make a decision here because, like, do we cancel or do we go through with it or do we postpone it? So we did cancel the physical show, and we ended up giving advertising back, and but at sort of the last minute we said, well, let's try a virtual uh, tour and see how that goes.
Hmm.
It was a lot of work. It was a lot of different kind of work because
Yeah.
usually when you do these shows, you kind of fall into a pattern. It's like ABC, but with this, it was like, well, we've never done this before, so um, let's try it, and
That
It worked out really
yeah,
well.
that's what we had do, and I do think I do think that it's actually probably in the long run going to be good for artists. I mean, I don't know about Hamilton, but I know a lot of the artists in the Artist Network, they've really resisted kind of moving online because it's a different skill set you have to learn. And I don't know about you, but when I do a show too, it's easy to pick up the stuff that's in the studio, and that's what's going to be in your tent. Like you have a plan, but I don't have
Yeah,
to plan exactly which piece is going to be there
yeah,
because you kind of do it on when you're in your tent and you see what goes well and where's the light coming from and who's beside you and all that kind of stuff, right?
right.
Whereas with an online show, everything has to be so much more planful. And we were in the same situation with Riverdale because not only do you got the advertising, there's a huge number of expenses that have to be incurred.
Oh, absolutely.
And you kind of at that time too, it sounds like, well, of course we'd have to cancel, but at the time you're going through that, it wasn't so obvious, and we didn't really fully understand how this was going to manifest itself. So you're kind of like, I don't want to lose something that's really great, where artists have a great opportunity to sell, but I don't want to be fiscally foolish with the organization either, right?
Right, exactly. And that's a tough choice to make, especially when you don't know what the future holds 2 weeks ahead, let
Hmm.
alone 2 months ahead of time. And like I said, you have to get out and get the advertising going and all these like business parts of it that just even the where are we going to advertise? Do we take out that advertisement? Like that $1,500 ad in a magazine, or what? Those are big
Yeah.
choices for an arts organization, which is nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, and especially too, if you're then in a situation where you might have to cancel and then refund all of those submission fees. I mean, there's stuff that's
yeah,
already been committed. Like for us, it's park permits, and I mean the city of Toronto was really great about not charging us for the park permits and stuff. But you don't know that when you're making those decisions, and it's different. I find I'm inherently a risk taker, so I'm happy to take those risks for myself. But when you're making those decisions, and that risk is based on a whole bunch of other artists and their decisions and their livelihood, that's a whole other level of, of stress.
for sure, because and artists, the money, the show fees, and those things. It's important. We tried to get
Hmm.
the money back as quickly as possible. Um,
Yeah,
because this is just arts is just kind of a tenuous, precarious existence, I guess, but especially financially, right? And
yeah.
for those of us, well, for when when the bottom went out in 2008, and the arts market just went poof without, well, we go again. It hasn't been that way for me anyway, thankfully. But from artists that I talk to, they seem to be doing well and coping well and having sales and, like I said, doing commissions. But I'm sure that's not. Everyone's different, but I think overall, hopefully, the artists will be okay out of this. And
I hope so, and I do think I was really very happy when CERB was modified to be able to include kind of the gig workers and artists, because what my experience has been is that the artists that have been around for a long time, like say 10 years, and really aggressively do the shows and aggressively manage their databases and have a brand presence, then I think they are doing quite well. I find I'm doing well as well. People are sitting at home looking at their empty walls. They're still working, so they've got the money, but they don't have any place to spend it, and that's been a good thing. But artists who are sort of just emerging and they don't have that following yet, I think it's really hard for them. And so it's nice that at least with CERB, they're able to continue their practice so that they can, go online or modify their business plan or, continue to refine their work until hopefully this whole thing is an end.
well, the business of art.
Yeah, I know. I know, and it's one of those things too. I can see that you're obviously. So did you start the Hamilton Art Crawl, or are you just kind of engaged in it, or I know you're very involved.
The art crawl is a different thing, but ours, the West Hamilton Artist Tour, this was our 11th year. So myself and Tara Lynn Franco and Siobhan Lynch, we started the tour. Paul Elia was heavily involved as well. And it was just sort of a nice little, just a walkable free tour we do on Mother's Day weekend in artists' studios and homes. It's sort of like the west part of Hamilton. So if you know Lock Street, it's around Lock Street.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been great. It's just a great community event. So we love doing that. I mean, it's a ton of work.
Yeah. You have to enjoy the intellectual challenge of it to put that many hours in. I can only imagine, because I'm the same way with the Artist Network. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and the cliche of herding cats is always true when you're involved with artists. So, it's like some artists are great, others need to be, emailed and nudged, sometimes several times, to get their images in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, we're doing this for you, Can you?
Well, and it's I think that's actually a really interesting point that might be kind of interesting to discuss, because you and I have probably been on the same side of this. Like when we, obviously Artist Network is also a not-for-profit volunteer, so everyone does the work volunteer except for Angela, who kind of directs the show for, 180 artists, and then we have Art Walk Square. But a lot of people too, they're like, well, I didn't think I had to do any marketing because I thought that's what the submission fees were for. And you're like, okay, first of all, unless you want your submission fees to be like $1,000 a show, like that's not going to cover all of the marketing stuff we have to do and all of the other pieces. But also you're missing out on an incredible opportunity to promote yourself with a whole group of other artists. And, kind of people, I always say this all the time and people are going to laugh at me, but like a rising tide floats all boats. I mean, if I help promote you, you help promote me, we help promote the show, everybody benefits. And some people intuitively get that. And some people think, well, why would I promote you if they might buy from you and not from me? So I think it's good for artists to sort of really think about this and think about, I don't know, giving to get, I think.
Yeah, some tours, they do have an opt-out where you pay, say, like $200 extra on top of the fee to opt out of doing any of the volunteering and whatever. But I kind of feel, I mean, that's fine for what it is, but it kind of, I don't know, it takes away something from, this sort of community, it's like a fish fry almost, it's where everyone brings something to the core, and
yeah,
I like that. Like that's the best part of the tour, in my
opinion. And I think with all of those shows, like I think that those, obviously you're there to sort of meet collectors and hopefully collectors buy your work, and obviously that's part of it. But the other huge part of it, I think, is getting to know your other artists in the art community and becoming engaged in it. And I love the fact that, you know, I've never done the West Hamilton tour. I don't know if I even could, or the art crawl, but I'm pretty sure that I would know a number of the artists quite well already. And so I think that sense of community and that kind of allows you to maybe more easily take those risks when you know you're going to be there with other people that you know. And I think that's, again, a tremendous advantage. And that's one of the things I think we're all missing this year is kind of that expanding of our network and meeting new artists. And well, that's why I started this, you know, because I want to talk to people like you and I at the Toronto Outdoor. We chat for a bit and what are you doing and what's going on in your life. And I think that's kind of great for us all to be able to kind of build our practice.
Oh, I know. Like, how many times have we been in our booths and tents and we're having like a good gab with a friend and it's like, oh, I guess I should, you know, take care of
Yeah.
customers.
Yeah. So talking about community, I think your work kind of is all about community, isn't it? Like it's sort of about, because you shoot kind of your images are within, I guess, in cities and tight, close quarters and obviously very architectural, but kind of all interconnected is kind of how I see that too.
Yeah, I think that's at the heart and soul of my work. So, like, I do love geometry and I love architecture and I love, you know, graphic novels and, you know, sort of, graphic design. But really that's what is the underlying piece I feel about my work is how we're all connected to each other. And I don't know if I really realized that at first when I started painting. I think something that kind of slowly dawned on me is like, you know, this is why I like living in a city. This is why I like connecting with people. And I think that's, you know, when you're letting it flow, it's you that's coming out in your work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can really, I'm not getting into too much psychology, but I think you can really figure yourself out a bit more through your own artwork.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And it's interesting too, because, you know, one of the reasons I really have been really attracted to your work is obviously the graphic component of it is really lovely, the structure and the order. But then what I really love actually is the colors that you put into it. So those aren't really realistic colors, but they are happy colors. Like you do get out of it that you do enjoy being in the city. And there is an energy that lives in the city. And, you know, I love that. I love it too. I live in Toronto and I love being in Toronto. And people are like, oh, wouldn't you rather live at the cottage? I'm like, I love the cottage, but
Yeah,
I don't want to live here. I like the energy of the people and the buildings and the sight lines and that are in the city.
yeah, definitely, all of that. And that, you know, I choose. Like, I was born in the country, out in the sticks, and lived there for my first 18 years, and I'm glad I did. And there's things I appreciate about being in the country. I appreciate them now, but I didn't appreciate them then. Like
Hmm.
you know, the solace, you know, just the dark nights, all of the, you know, the nature and things that
Yeah.
people I talk to in the city were like, what? You know, you have horses beside you? You have chickens? Like,
Yeah, that'd be neat.
what?
I think for me, it's the smell. Like I love the smell of being in the middle of a healthy forest and that organic smell of the earth. And
Yeah,
I don't know, I find that no matter how stressful my day has been, you know, I get to the cottage, as soon as my foot hits the earth, I can just feel all that negative energy draining and the stress draining. And,
yeah,
you know, and I think for me too, that's why I'm really, you know, nature, I know it's a lot of people's inspiration, but for me, it's that inspiration. But it is also about kind of that connectivity and kind of sharing the joy that you feel when you're in nature. And part of that um, is I think that connectivity, not just to nature, but also to like to humanity, like to people. Like it's all part and parcel of it.
yeah. Where do you see your work, like yours has evolved and changed over the years, and you've been at it quite a long time as well. So, where do you
Yeah.
where do you see your? Is this something that's organic, or is there something maybe that you're like, kind of series or something new that you want to try?
You're so intuitive. Yeah. So I find I bounce around a lot. So where I originally started was a lot of kind of full color fields, and that was my color field collection. And then when I started doing my current collection, when I discovered sort of the wood grain, and people said, well, you can't be doing all this different stuff all over the place. People don't know what to expect from you. So I kind of said, okay, I'm going to break it into collections. And I've got my color field and I've got the energy in motion, which is probably the collection I'm best known for.
Yeah.
And then I was working on Unity, which was about, it actually started a few years ago when I was doing a lot of traveling and stuff. And I kind of thought, I really like the idea of this connectiveness of people and ideas and culture into kind of a more beautiful whole. So it tends to be quite linear. And I'm actually want to work a little bit more on that because I think I haven't really taken that as far as I want to take it. And then completely oppositely, I feel like I want to paint huge giant flowers, like super colorful. So I haven't quite wrapped my head around how that's going to work or how that's going to fit in. Because with a palette knife, it's a very different, you can't get that really level of detail,
Yeah.
but I don't want it to look messy. But I like the energy of it being a little bit messy, so I haven't worked through that yet.
And is that on panel?
Primarily, yeah.
Yeah.
I did some work on canvas, and I did get some pieces I really liked. I didn't find it was consistent, and part of that is because I had a vision that I wanted this almost like watercolor background, and I realized I probably need to take some watercolor classes because I can't figure out how to consistently get what I want. It's sort of a bit more happenstance, which sometimes is great, but sometimes is not great. Whereas with the wood, I really love exploring the wood grain and kind of that wood grain coming out, and it's always going to be different,
Yeah.
and it's kind of unpredictable. So I like that part of it.
Yes, yes. We just as an aside, we just purchased for my birthday. Caitlin Mason, one of her works, she was at
Oh, I love her work.
yeah, and it's on panel and colored pencil on panel, which is I just love it. And
Yeah.
I just love how that like you said, it's like a happy I don't know happy accident, but it's part of the kind of organic.
Well, it really placed it. Like when she does her scarves and things like that, I find it really kind of, it gives it a nice organic kind of grounding.
Yeah.
Funny story, I think it was a few years ago, she was at the Riverdale Art Walk and she won, I guess, best award in best painting, right? And she's like, I'm so honored, but I don't paint. They're actually colored pencils. And we're like, oh, I don't think the judges realized that because what she's able to do with a colored pencil is really phenomenal. So anyway, she won best other mixed media or something.
They're painters. Like
Yeah.
they look so much like paintings that I think they could almost qualify as a painting. Anyway.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting though. I think she's another person who I think has built a really strong brand for herself, and you see her work and you know it's her work. And I think the colored pencils actually create a bit of that. You can't necessarily put your finger on the fact that it's not a painting, but it looks different than what you've seen before.
Right, exactly.
Well, happy birthday then, and congratulations on on your purchase.
You touched on a point though that is interesting in that artists after a while they have their the thing they do, what they're known for, and then that's great. But you can also get sort of pigeonholed or typecast in a way. How doing different series is really, I think, is a great way around that, right?
I think so, yeah. I think the reality is that if a collector likes your work and they see you and they follow you, it could sometimes be 2 or 3 years by the time they actually have the money to buy or they finally see a piece that really talks to them. And I know I've been in the situation where I followed an artist, I really like their work, and all of a sudden they do something completely different, and you're like, and they don't do the old stuff anymore, right? And it's kind of, I think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice as an artist if you're constantly changing so dramatically, because it takes time for people to keep up with you as the artist.
Yeah.
And there's sales, I think, that you're just missing.
Yeah, you can't roll out the iPhone 10 too quickly after the iPhone 8 or whatever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's crass, but it's true.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of it, right? That's part of doing, obviously, both you and I are obviously painting what we love to paint, right? I mean, and that's you have to continue to enjoy that, and that's maybe sometimes if you don't, then maybe you finish that collection. But the reality also is that if we want to continue to paint and buy these expensive panels and do art shows, you have to sell. So,
speaking of expensive panels, have you had a hard time getting art supplies since COVID? How's that been going for you? I found it hit and miss.
sorry, I'm kind of losing the audio a little bit on you.
Oh, have you found it hard to find art supplies? Like, did you stock up early on, or is it? I found
I
things
you
are a
know,
little
I
hit and miss.
Yeah, I did stock up early on, and it's funny because my husband was he's kind of in risk, and so he was saying, I think this could be more serious than you're taking it, you're not, than you think. And so he's like, okay, we need to stock up on, like beans and toilet paper. And my first thought is, I need to stock up on art supplies. So, you know, so I actually bought a whole bunch, which actually held me pretty well. Um, the
So you're
panels for sure.
your
So
husband is not the risk taker.
that's right.
I see the
Yeah.
dynamic. Good.
So that was important. We have lots of beans, but I had lots of art supplies.
And lots of toilet paper.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm finding now, though, because my panels are custom made for me, so they have really clean, interesting wood grain, which day and night is great for. And I'm sure I'm a huge pain in the ass client for them because I'm always like, the wood grain has to go this way and it has to be really nice and no black spots.
Yeah. Shout out to
But
Dave working in Toronto.
yeah, they're great. But they're also, because of COVID, they're also limited in terms of the number of people that can be in the workshop. So I'm finding doing these commissions, I just got an order just before I went on vacation. So it'll be probably 5 weeks from when I originally talked to the people before I can actually start working on the commission. And people have been
Yeah.
great and they've been understanding, but it is taking a long time.
Yeah. I think that's something if if everything's set in advance and everything, you know, people understand, then it shouldn't be a problem, right? As long as you
Yeah.
know, you know. Oh, Nancy's pointing at my painting, honey. Yeah. Okay.
CBSA.
I need to get back on point. So this is frequency illusions. That was a terrible.
Wow, good segue there, Gord.
You're the host.
I was enjoying our conversation. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I was enjoying
Get the
talking.
plug in. Yeah.
So yeah, I have to plug this. So DVSA, which is Dundas Valley School of Arts, it's an excellent. They have accredited. I don't know if they're. No, I don't want to say something I'm not sure of, but they're a wonderful school. You can get university level art credits. They're much like you can at OCAD. And a lot of my friends teach there, and they're wonderful. And they're going through what everyone else is going through. They're summer. They do a lot of summer camps for kids. They're just a really great community institution that we have in Dundas, which is basically part of Hamilton. So I wanted to plug them because they're having their 50th anniversary. It was supposed to be this year, but while the auction was supposed to be this fall, so they're going to do it next year, like have their proper 50th celebration. But in the interim, they're doing their 49 and a half.
Oh, that was the 49 and a half. I didn't quite get that. Okay.
So that's the 49 and a half art auction. And let me check the dates. It's from September 21st to 26th. And it's, check out their website. I think most of it's kind of virtual, but, all the details are on there.
And do you want to give us the URL? Because I wrote it down, but I don't know where I put it now.
dvsa.ca.
Okay.
And they're great if you want. I took a spray painting class there a couple years ago, like graffiti, which was a blast.
Oh, that would be fun.
Oh, it was so much fun. It was like me, the 50-year-old guy, and a bunch of 19, 17-year-old guys. It was funny.
That's okay. You can still have that urban attitude.
So this one will be Frequency Illusion will be up for auction in the live auction. So there's going to be a live auction and also what do you call the auction where you write down? What is that?
Like a
silent auction as well. And the funds are all cycled back to run the school. So check that out.
that sounds great. Yeah, I definitely will check that out.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful piece.
Thank you. And I should say Hugo has joined us today, so
Oh.
he's our He's our unpaid actor.
You're paid? That's important.
I feed him. That's enough.
That's all he needs. And I was looking on your website too, and I noticed you did a collective arts bottle label.
Oh yeah. So collective
That
art.
was fun. How did that happen?
Well, they have. You can. How do they do it now? You can submit. You can submit. Hold on. What am I holding? Okay, I'm holding it. So. Oh, I see. Hold it to me. You can submit online. I'm not sure their URL, but Collective Arts, and yeah, they get artists from all over the world. It's usually a lot of more kind of graphic style, but yeah, that was neat. So I've got some bottles with my stuff on it. But
That's
it's
fun.
Hamilton, so I thought, it's pretty. Oh, she's bringing out the bottles. Okay, I see.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not really a beer drinker, but I'm the beer buyer.
Oh, the beer. Well,
Oh,
that's really exciting.
oh, those are so cool.
Yeah, so they're neat.
Yeah.
And those are
So I'm terrible with I'll actually buy. I usually get the cans, but I always buy the beer based on the art that's on the label. So I'm totally they marketed so well to me. But some of it, my husband is kind of like, well, it would be great if you could actually look at the type of beer you're buying as opposed to just the label.
that sounds like Nancy. It's like I can't drink this case of port. So yeah, so
Excellent.
that was neat. And they're looking for submissions. So if there's any artists that you want to have your art on a can of beer, a really good beer, then go for it.
Yeah, Carolyn said I love collective arts. My favorite is a sour beer. Yeah, my daughter's really into sour beers too.
They make a really nice sour beer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the
So
other?
what's on the horizon for you? You were talking to me about working on different series. Are you do you do the same thing where is this one series and you're working on something else? I think it's more of an aerial. I think you were saying.
Yeah. So in Hamilton we have we call it the mountain. It's really the Niagara Escarpment. But when you're up there, you can get a good view of all the rooftops on this city. And that's really, I think, where it kind of dawned on me that we're so connected,
Hmm.
and especially in the lower city. Sometimes the houses are like a foot apart.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, and there's a lot of much like Toronto. There's a lot of alleyways in the back, and you can just see all these weird kind of vistas of sheds, uh, roof sheds leading into awnings and all these different things. So visually, it's really cool. I just love walking down the alleyways and seeing it even at different times of day. The way the sun hits it differently depending on where it's coming from. Shadows
Yeah.
feature in my work quite a bit. So
And do you think it also feeds a little bit of maybe inherent nosiness as well? Like I'm not saying for you personally, but in terms of people being attracted to those kind of paintings.
yeah. Oh, someone said to me not long ago, it's like I always wonder who's in that window or what's behind the window, and I always kind of think like, we're all kind of caretakers, right? Like even if you own your house outright or whatever, it's not always
Hmm.
going to be yours or in your family necessarily, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
history, and then there's also going to be you're going to be history. Not came out wrong, but
Hopefully longer than shorter time frame. Yeah. And so how do you start your work then? Is it imagination? Is it from photographs or what's your process?
usually I'll get an idea through photographs, um, and depending on how large it is, if it's a small painting, uh, I can usually just kind of glean something from one photo. If it's a large painting, I might get ideas from several photos. What I usually do is I'll get my canvas and I'll draw a grid on it so that I do a lot of straight lines. So I want to make sure those lines are straight with the edges. So I'll use a grid
Hmm.
and then draw it out with ruler, kind of like drafting class, in grade 10. And after that, I might take like acrylic paint markers and, I'll draw it out so I can see it properly. And then I start blocking in the colors. So, and that, depending on the color of the painting, I would sort of equate it to like painting a room in your house. Like if you paint your a room in your house blue, it might only take 2 coats. If you're going to paint your wall red, it's going to take 4 or 5 coats. So
Right.
acrylics are the same way. It's like if it's a red painting, it's going to take a long time because you got to put lots and lots of coats.
To build up that intensity and kind of depth of color, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's also, in here, back to the business of art, it's going to be more expensive because red pigments are a lot more expensive than blue pigments. So there's all these, all these crazy things involved with it. And then I just build up the colors until they're flat. And I'd say that's sort of my process. It's maybe not much of a process, but
No, it's just it's interesting because obviously it's one of those things too where the mind's eye will see if the perspective is wrong, right? So obviously, getting that grid and getting all that perfect, it totally makes sense because otherwise it's so you can have a really beautiful piece, but it somehow doesn't sit right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if it's not, I say this all the time. If it's not working out um, in the drawing stage, it's not going to work later on.
Yeah,
Like building a foundation for a house. It's
yeah, it's got to be on a strong foundation. Yeah,
has to be right at first, right?
yeah. And how do you do
So,
commissions then? Or sorry?
colors you can always change if the color's not working. Oh, Nancy's pointing over here.
Like
So
that one.
this painting, uh, I started a couple of years ago, and I didn't feel right about it, so I just left it. I just put it in the basement in storage, and I got it out last week. And I went, oh, it's got good bones. So, but the colors are all wrong. So I just basically changed all the colors on it until I was happy with it, and now there it is. It's like a new painting.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's interesting how that happens though. Sometimes it's kind of with my pieces as well, especially being abstract. I don't always have the tools to be able to kind of specifically figure out what's wrong. I just know it's not working yet. And so sometimes by putting it away for a little bit and then you bring it out or you turn it upside down, you're like, oh, I know absolutely what's wrong with it. And I could not see it a month ago.
Yeah, I find that's the best. If you just put it away for a month, turn it against the wall, don't look at it, and then you look at it with fresh eyes. Because especially large paintings, you get so involved with them.
You get so close.
Yeah, you lose your perspective. You lose, not perspective. You lose. I don't know. You can't. You're just so close
Well,
to it.
you get so caught up in the details. Sometimes it's important to step back and take a look at the whole thing. I find, I don't know about you, but I also find sometimes taking a photograph of it, the brain seems to process that differently than looking directly at the piece. So that sometimes helps me to be able to figure out what's working and what's not. And black and white too. If I converted
Yes.
to black and white, I can see where some of the contrast is just not, it's just not working quite yet,
Yeah,
or it's too strong.
you have too many mid-tones or something.
Hmm.
And that really, if you take a photo and put it in black and white, it's very, very helpful. And like you said, turning it upside down, does it work as a piece, sideways, upside down? Um, Especially, I guess, more for abstract, but it works with realism too, especially you know, uh, especially early on. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
can catch those things early on, then I think you're good. And honestly, sometimes paintings just don't work out. It's like, rip.
I have one right now and it's just like, I'm like, there's pieces of it I really love. I don't know if it's working out or not. Like I just can't really assess it. So I posted on Instagram, which I thought was going to be more helpful than it was. Because people are like, oh no, it's great, it's finished. I'm like, no, I just don't feel it yet.
Yeah, you're the one you're the one that knows ultimately,
Yeah,
right? And if you're not feeling it, then maybe that's a candidate to go into storage for a bit and bring it back out.
Yeah, and I think, and you have to, your name's attached to it, right? So it's kind of like it has to be something. I don't want anything out there that I'm not proud of. And there are certain pieces I'm maybe more proud of than others. But I think that for sure, if something comes up 30 years from now, I want to be able to say, yeah, that's still a good painting and I'm still happy with it.
It's funny. Nancy and I were talking about this last night. Um, it's like, there's some paintings that I would put at the top of my favorite paintings,
Hmm.
and I wish I could paint 100 of those, but I for some reason it's just kind of the mystery of being an artist. It's not
Yeah.
it's not just all it's not robotic, it's every piece.
It's an energy that I think sometimes it's infused in different pieces. But I find for me, ironically, the pieces that I'm the most proud of and the pieces that I love seem to be the pieces that don't sell. So I don't know why that is, because it's kind of like, to me, it felt like everything came together. Like I was in a great space when I produced it. It was nice. It's got that energy. It's got that looseness and the spontaneity. The wood grain's beautiful. The resin's perfect or whatever. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get why this one hasn't been loved.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I bet that's true for a lot of artists. They're just like,
Yeah.
that one's sold. It's not too expensive.
Yeah. Well, and I keep very little of my own art because, well, first of all, because I have an art collection that, I have of other artists. But so I almost wonder sometimes if the universe is telling me that those few pieces I do need to keep.
Maybe.
Just so I have a history of my own work, because I don't actually really do that. I don't really have that.
Yeah. Nancy
Do you
likes
do
to
that?
Nancy likes to keep my artwork on our walls, which, and she put them on every wall in the house, and I'm like, no, I just because I self critique all the time. It's like she
Yeah,
loves, and I don't love seeing them because I'm always so critical of my own work, right? So, uh,
I agree. And it feels a little weird to me too, because I think there's the art that I produce, which is my very incredibly amazing job and passion. But then there's the art collection that I have that I build with my husband, which is kind of, that's also part of the fun of going to these shows and talking to artists and supporting other artists as well. But because my sister and my grandmother are also both artists, I have inherited a lot of art. And I kind of just feel like my art collection shouldn't really include my art for some reason. It just feels weird. I don't know.
yeah, I know. I mean, I could kind of see the points that or wrap it up and put it in storage, I guess. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's better to be on a wall
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and I'm not a narcissist at all. I'm not like I'm loving myself.
I always think that it might actually stop me from being able to move forward if I'm surrounded by the pieces that I did that are kind of always there. Like, do you compare yourself to what you're doing now to what you've done in the past? And you can never reproduce what you've done in the past.
Exactly, and going back to what we were talking about last night with wishing I could you know paint 100 of those. I don't want to, because that would just be copying uh, what I did in the past. So what's the point of that? Really,
Yeah.
it's not that gratifying as a creative person. You know,
Mhm. Yeah. So I liken hanging your own art in your house to staring at yourself at a mirror all day long. Oh yeah, that's accurate.
yeah,
Wouldn't want to do that either.
yeah.
I have none. Sue McNally says, yeah. I know, because I keep trying to buy Sue's pieces and they sell before anyone can buy them, let alone herself keeping any of them.
Oh yeah, good.
So what's up next with you? What are the new fun things you're working on?
Right now, well, like I said, I did the commissions, so I'm just finishing up a couple of those. And I have to say, it's been fun doing the commissions because they just getting off on seeing the reactions was really cool. So
Yeah.
that was fun. I don't know in terms of like any new series if I don't know. It just if something bubbles up, it'll bubble up. But
Hmm.
I'm I'm really liking doing kind of long, skinny pieces. So say like 12 by 36 or
I love that shape.
24 by
Or
40.
18 by 48, 18 by 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, but doing not doing portrait style, not landscape style.
Hmm.
Which I think kind of lends when I'm looking for source material, much like I do a lot of squares, my source material lends itself really well to that kind of profile. So yeah, I don't know. I enjoy doing those.
Hmm.
What else do I have? Is there anything else?
Did you say you
Yeah,
want to do a mural?
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing another mural maybe in the fall. We'll see how things go. So I have a mural in Hamilton of one of my pieces. It's behind Caro Restaurant,
Hmm.
which is Maine and Ottawa, behind the Dairy Queen, if anyone's looking for it. And I did it. I did all of that in spray paint, which is a lot of fun. Although not fun when it's windy. And it goes.
So you got spray paint all down one side.
or, yeah, or up like in the air. Yeah. So I have a lot of respect for graffiti artists for sure, because
Yeah.
they're out there like in the elements. Yeah, so that's something I maybe want to do a little bit more of. We'll see what happens. We were supposed to go away this year. We were supposed to go to Portugal, to the Azores, uh,
Oh, lovely.
like next week, but that's been put aside for next year.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
we were supposed to go to Morocco in October, and I was so looking forward to kind of the colors and the inspiration. But yeah, same thing. Not happening.
So many of my favorite painters went to Morocco to paint, so that would that's on my bucket list of places to be for sure. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, not a lot of traveling right now for sure. But
No, no,
it lets me paint more, right?
that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, now I've become a hoarder of all my art supplies. I'm actually in a pretty good shape.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so we're actually also, the Art Walk in the Square. We were really hoping to be able to kind of continue to have that live because it's with the shops at Don Mills. But I think now with this second wave and stuff, that's actually we're moving that online. So anyway, if you didn't apply for it, we're doing a virtual new submission for some of the going virtually and do some online stuff there too. So
What are the dates for that?
I think the submissions are due sort of like the 13th of August, and then the online show runs the 27th of August until October 9th or something.
Okay, sounds good.
So
Yeah.
that'd be kind of fun.
It would be, yeah, for sure. Um, I miss the Artist Network. I was a member for a couple of years, and we did. I just love the people that are involved, and
Yeah.
it's just so hard for me to get into the city, especially once my kids started, getting a little older and having their own, you know, taking them to hockey and all this kind of stuff. I just couldn't. I could never get there for any of the
Oh,
events.
well,
And
I totally. And that, for us, that's actually one of the interesting positive side effects that happened with COVID because we had to pivot really quickly and start doing all our education sessions online, which we've been talking about doing for a long time, but it was a bit daunting. And now that we can really expand, access to all those education sessions. If they're by Zoom calls, you can do them whenever, from wherever you are. So that's been pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, Zoom. I don't know about Zoom. it's it's good. I guess it's good, right? It's better than nothing, but I don't
I
know.
think nothing's perfect, but it's kind of, I think it's kind of the way of the future, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm finding I'm doing commission calls now, and of course, normally I'd go to somebody's home, which you can't do. I mean, we're only just starting to maybe now, but what I am finding is that I'm now doing commissions I'm working on one with a woman from Cincinnati, and so she kind of does her video call and looks at the house, and I do the video call, and we look at different studio paintings, and it's actually just a kind of an interesting way to work. They're definitely different, but
yeah.
it allows you
Well,
to expand your reach, right?
yeah. You have to be, open to new ideas, right?
Hmm.
And that's definitely one way you can kind of you can talk with a client about their ideas of what they want for a commission, and it must be so different doing an abstract commission though. Like are they mostly looking for what color input? Is that
I think a lot of it is that people, they like to be part of the creative process. And so often what happens for me is people will say, well, I love this piece, but I need a different size, or, you know, and I love these colors, but I really hate green. And sometimes people will give me samples of their couches and pillows and stuff like that, which I don't really have a problem with, because typically the reason they're attracted to my work is because they already have those colors in their home. So it's like, oh, can you put turquoise into this painting? I'm like, well, I use turquoise anyway. So if it makes you feel better to give me a custom swatch of your couch, I'm totally fine to match that exact turquoise, because it's a color I use anyway.
but
You
the
know,
best is when they paint their room to match your art. Have you ever
that's
had
cool.
that?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and I'm finding now too, people are looking at their empty walls and they're kind of like, yeah, that empty wall didn't bother me when I was super busy and working outside the home, but now I'm looking at it every day. I just feel like I need to have something on it.
well, you know getting a coat of paint is the cheapest way really you can change your house. You know,
Hmm.
it doesn't involve big renovations or anything like that. You know, for $50 you get a gallon of paint, and it's like, oh, got a whole new
Oh
place. You
yeah,
know, doing an accent wall or something, right?
yeah. And the reality is, if you don't like it, you can easily paint it over, right? It's not like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know.
And
I want to
do
put
you
a dark
that's
purple. Hmm, sorry.
that sounds fun. Dark purple.
Anyway, I think we're almost out of time, so I want to make sure I can
Oh,
put this on IGTV.
yep.
Um, but I want to thank you so much. That was really great to have a chat with you like this. And I'll definitely post the Dundas School auction, and we'll look at it and hope that it goes really well. And
Oh, and
hopefully
I
we'll
should
see you at the Artist Project next year in April now.
Instagram at Hamilton Artist, GordonLeverton.com. Check it. All the events are on there. Sorry, I know that's my spiel, right?
That's
And
perfect. Yep. And this will be on my Instagram. I'll save it to my Facebook page, and I'm actually in the process of putting them into a YouTube channel, just so people can go back afterwards and listen to them.
oh, great, because
But
nothing better I like than rewatching videos of you.
that's why I do it live. You know, people said maybe you should videotape it so you can, you know, get out all those bleeps and stuff like that. And if there's construction, I'm like, yeah, if I do that, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to be critical, and I'll think of editing it, and I will never actually make it go live. So this way you have to accept it the way it is.
Yeah, I love it. What do you say, Nancy? Sorry.
Thank people. They're great artists are on here. The friends are on here. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for everybody. Thanks to everybody.
Yeah.
I'll just thank
Yeah.
everybody in the world for being
We thank
there.
everybody who loves us.
Yes.
And thanks to the arts community. Yeah. And also I've
Yeah.
seen a couple of collectors come on here too, and kind of just, I think they're also interested in kind of knowing the life of the artist and what makes the artist tick. And I think that's really great too. So thank
Yeah,
you for
we're
joining
going to be
us.
fun.
Yeah.
Well,
And next
thanks.
week we have Lisa Hickey and then Kat Strombolic. So I've got, so stay tuned, and thank you so much, Gord, and have a great, and Nancy, thanks for being the camera lady.
Thanks, Kate. Really appreciate it.
Okay. And we'll talk to you later. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
So that was great. Again, lots of thanks, but I do appreciate everybody joining us. And if you kind of caught it halfway through or you missed it, it will be on my Instagram. And I'm actually in the process of not only having it on my YouTube channel, but actually seeing if I can separate the audio and make it into a podcast. Because I know a lot of people have kind of said that they tend to listen to these kind of things as they're painting and doing things, which I totally understand, because that's what I do too. So thank you so much, and we will talk to you next week.